It's time. Bones and All is a horror romance. No surprise there. And it's set in the 80s. Also no surprise there. So it's the perfect movie for me. This movie was directed by the same director as Call Me By Your Name. I went in knowing that it would be very immersive and artsy. Call Me By Your Name feels like you're there. It's shot in a way that is like the character's perspective everywhere, and it has very layered background noises that make it extremely ambianced. Is that the word? It makes it very immersive. And Call Me By Your Name is, of course, a romantic drama. So in that sense, it's kind of like you are on this love story in a summer in Italy. And so I knew, like, this is the director's filmmaking style. And, oh boy, that is the correct assumption. But instead of feeling like you're having a summer love story in Italy, you feel like you are a young cannibal who is experiencing the evil inside of you and grappling with the trauma of your life in real time. So, let's hop in. The movie starts off with some establishing shots. Essentially, it's like these watercolor pictures of power lines over fields. It's setting the scene for this is Midwest America, simpler times, but also long distance connections in the Midwest. And that we'll come back to that later. So the movie opens with that, like just kind of like some peaceful music and some like beautiful shots of beautiful fields. And we hop in and we see our protagonist Marin at a piano. And she's playing piano in her big 80s sweater. And her friend comes up to her and says like, "You missed picture day." And she's like, "Oh." And then she's like, "We're having a sleepover. You can meet a bunch of people and like you can make some friends." And then Marin's like, "I can't, my dad's strict, I can't go out." And then she's like, "Just sneak out of your house." So this is implying that Marin's new at school and pretty quiet and like goes unnoticed, like she's not even in the yearbook or anything. And like her dad has something to do with that. Like her dad doesn't want her to socialize for some reason. Or not doesn't want her to socialize, but her dad discourages socialization, which can have many reasons. But we'll find out why Marin's not allowed to socialize very soon. So then it cuts to the nighttime and Marin sneaking out of her house to go to the sleepover, and you're seeing like the same perspective of her walking under a power line as the watercolor pictures in the beginning. So it's like, you know, as if she's into painting now. It's cute. I love it. It's like a very little, just like a little parallel. It's cute like that. And so she sneaks to her little sleepover, and all the girls are painting their nails and chatting. And she's talking to this one girl, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't really have very many friends and stuff." And then you can tell that they're having a nice little bonding moment. Then Marin reaches over and bites the girl's finger off. Uh-oh. Yeah. Maybe I'll stop right here and say, Bones and All is about cannibals. And if you didn't know when you walked into the movie theater, now you do. So I'm sure a lot of people in that moment who didn't see the trailer had a rude awakening. So she bites the girl's finger off. Everybody's screaming and running around, and she runs out of the house. She's got blood all over her, and she's like, "Dad, it happened again." And then the dad's like, "Oh, we have to go, pack up the house, let's go." And you can see that she lives in like this like not very lived in house, like it's like run down. I don't remember if this one's a trailer or just a small house, but it's like very small house, like not very much furniture, and so they're like just packing up and going right away, and they can do that because apparently they do that all the time. Like she was new at that school, like she's just gonna move on to the next school. And they pack up everything and they leave, and they're in like a new state now or something. Then we have like this scene of Marin waking up in this new house, just mundane, getting up, getting ready. So that takes you in. It's like, this is you. It like they're even showing like the most basic parts of life, just to be like, this is just a regular girl living her very regular mundane life, just like you. Then she goes out to the kitchen and sees that her dad's out there, and there's an envelope on the table, and in the envelope there's a tape recorder, like a tape player, her birth certificate, and some money. And then we have this really cool scene of flipping back and forth between the present and the future of her. It's a voiceover of the tape that the dad left, and then like cut between visuals of her first discovering it, then finding her dad's jacket and putting it on, and then like crying because it's like, oh no, like her dad's gone now, what's she gonna do? And all these things, and she's finding out, like she's on the tape, you're finding out that she has had these cannibalistic tendencies since she was 3, and her dad's afraid of her, and her mom left, and apparently she doesn't remember most of this happening, but she just like kind of vaguely remembers it happening like more and more recently. And so she's like, dang, this has been happening my whole life, and also my dad's gone, and also what am I gonna do? And he's like, on the tape he's like, you're 18 now, I'm tired of moving, I'm tired of hiding, it's your turn to figure it out, best of luck. And she's like, oh geez, you know, so her life's completely changing, but it's also like, you know, shows all these like mundane moments and passages through time of like her processing all of this. That kind of establishes the movie showing emotion over time instead of having like a literal, straightforward method of doing that. Like having the voiceover and almost like a montage with it, but clipped back and forth between times instead of like montage all to the future where the end happens. It's like she's feeling this way a little bit right now, but she's also feeling it a little bit in an hour from now. The same feeling. That whole montage takes about 1 to 2 minutes, but it shows like the whole day of her processing this tape in her new life. So then we see her go to the bus station. She finds her mom's name on her birth certificate, like she had never met her mom. Her mom left when she was like a little kid. And I believe it also said like birth city, or this is the location she was born. So like she doesn't have much information, she just has like a name and a city. And then the bus station lady's like, aren't you supposed to be in school? And she's like, you'd think so. Because it's like, yeah, I'd probably prefer to be in school now too, lady. You know? And then, so then she's like, well, we can't get a direct bus to that city that your birth mother's from. Somewhere in Minnesota. Right now, I believe she's somewhere in the Midwest-ish. Maybe United States southern Midwest-ish area. Yeah, they were like, okay, well, we can't do a direct bus to that city in Minnesota, but she can go to Columbus, Ohio. Do I have to check? Okay, so she starts in Maryland, then goes to West Virginia on the bus. Okay, I remember that correctly, but I just didn't say that. Okay, and then she ends up in Columbus, Ohio. And then take another bus to Minnesota. So she's like, fine, that's fine. getting me closer. So then she gets a ticket, and on the bus, she's listening to more and more of the tape that her dad left her. And then they find out, like, she ate her babysitter when she was a little kid, and she was like, dang, and she, like, she keeps, like, turning it off, like, abruptly. She's like, I don't really want to know this about me. Like, that's enough. And then, in Columbus, Ohio, this is where we meet a new character. She is waiting at the bus stop because she's waiting at the bus stop because the bus leaves in the morning. And we see this really wide shot. And when the first watch, I was just like, just looking at the road. Like, it was just like a shot of like this suburban road. And then, like, there's this really little figure on the left that's like kind of creeping up. And Marin's like looking around. She's like, what's going on? And I'm like, what's going on? She's looking like she's like confused. Like, she sees something. So I'm like, oh, what's going on? I want to see something. And it's this man walking up to her. And she's like, I don't really love that. I don't really love an old man walking up to me at this bus stop. And this old man is like, he's like, oh, like, I know what you are. And she's like, excuse me? And he's like, you're an eater, right? And she's like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, so I'm an eater as well. And I could smell you from across the street. It kind of seems like you haven't eaten in a while. Do you want to come to my house and get some food? And then she's like, not really, but I guess. Like, I don't want to be rude, and also you're kind of weird and I don't know what you're going to do, but sure, let's go. But also a little bit of curiosity because she's never met anybody like her before. And she's like, this is odd. How could he smell me? And what does that mean? And what? And then so she goes and follows him to a house. And he's like, hello, my name is Sully. And he's this old man, and he has his hair in a braid. And he wears this little, like, fisherman's vest with, like, a bunch of badges and stuff. He looks like a whimsical old man who you'd see at a library. And he talks, like, slow and like he's reading a storybook. And when I first watched it, I didn't think he was that creepy. I thought he was kind of weird, but like harmless. Like, not like go to an empty house with him, friendly and harmless, but like, friendly and harmless a little bit. But Marin's like, I don't know. This guy seems sus. And so then he's preparing these chickens for her in this house that he brought her to, and he's telling her about like being an eater a little bit, and she's like, are there more of us or something? Are there a lot of people like us? And he's like, there's more than you'd think, but like, not a lot, but more than you'd think. He's like, I've been an eater for a while, and like, your smell improves, and you can smell each other, and you can smell food, and you get a little weird when you don't eat, so we can tell and everything. And she's like, interesting. And then he's acting a little suspicious, and he keeps talking in the third person, and Marin's looking around this house and seeing like, this is kind of like a woman's house. Like, this is like, it's very like frilly and has a lot of family photos that Sully's not in. I believe that she saw photos already, but it's a very like cute, dainty house. And she's like, do you live here? And he's like, no, I've kind of been stalking out this place for a bit. There's an old lady here, and she was dying anyway, so I just was gonna, I don't like killing people to eat them. I'd rather just eat people who are gonna die anyway. And then she's like, what? And then he's like, okay, well, eater lesson number 1. They don't call themselves cannibals, they call themselves eaters. Eater lesson number 1. let's get your sniffer a suit. And then he's like, what do you smell upstairs? And she's like, smells tasty. Okay, she doesn't say that. But her sniffer starts working, and she starts like being like, it smells metallic, it smells like ketchup, it smells like vinegar, it smells smelly. And then she like walks upstairs and sees this old lady on the ground, and she's like, oh boy, what the heck, this is crazy, please, I don't want to be part of this. And then Sully's like, come on, we have to eat though, because we'll go crazy if we don't eat it, we might as well keep it like, you know, like, she's gonna die anyway. And then Marin's like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And then she like, she leaves the room and she locks herself in a bedroom. And she's like, I can't. But before that, Sully also says like, we're working on your sniffer and you can smell when somebody dies. So you know like when they're ready to eat. And so then it's like the next morning and she wakes up and she's like I smell it. I know that she died. And she walks out and we see this grisly scene. Ooh, somebody's having a party. So we see this absolutely grisly scene. She walks in and where the camera is shot from her perspective, mind you. And we see Sully in his underpants. He's wearing like a white tank top and underpants. And just over this old lady sniffing her. I think he's trying to eat her. And then Marin's like, what? And then he's like, come on over. And then she's like, okay. And then they eat the old lady. Now, when I first watched this movie, I was like, this is so hard to watch. And me describing it was hard to describe as well. But it was like very hard to watch because it was like, oh boy, what am I going to see? So then I covered my eyes. And then it turned out the second time I watched it, the moment I covered my eyes, they cut from the scene anyway, so you don't even see any more than I saw anyway. So, but they do make a lot of like gross mouth sounds of like, should I do that? I don't know. But they make a lot of gross mouth sounds of them eating the stuff. And they get it all over themselves. Then we see Sully and Marin sitting in the kitchen with blood all over them. And Sully's in his underpants and Marin has less blood on her because they kind of show like how different eaters have a different style. A different joie de vivre when it comes to cannibalism. That's not the correct term, but I think that's funny. Anyway, oh no, a certain je ne sais quoi. Okay, anyway, so like Sully, to clean up after eating, he wears his underpants, and Marin, when she was eating, she put her coat on backwards, and so it's kind of like a bib, because she's a baby eater. She doesn't eat babies, but she's young, it's over his time. Doing it on purpose, I guess. So then it's like showing like, oh well, they have different strategies of coping with the fact that they eat people. So, like Sully doesn't want to get it on his day clothes, and Marin also doesn't want to get it on her day clothes, but in a different way. So then Sully's like telling her like, I have this thing that I keep of all my meals. I don't know if they have a special name. But he's like, to remember everybody by, I take a lock of their hair and I braid it in this big ball of hair I have. And Marin's like, okay. And in the meantime, Marin, the thing that Marin has been taking along the way is she's just been taking time to look at all the people's pictures, like the family pictures, and like respecting the life that they had and the family that they had, and like acknowledging their personhood and respecting them, and like just keeping in mind that they are human, and that like this is strange to her, and she doesn't want them to like feel like food or something. She wants them to like feel special and like respected and like remembered and memorialized kind of thing. So her thing is like family pictures. Like she will take time to look at all of them, and they'll show all the pictures in the house kind of thing. And so like, yeah, she's like, this braid ball's weird. This braid ball's very strange. I don't like that one bit. And then Sully's like, so the first time I ate somebody, my parents discovered me and they kicked me out of the house. So I've been on my own ever since, and it's kind of lonely, so it's nice to have somebody here to share this with, so I'm glad you're here. But Marin's like, that braid ball was super freaking weird. And this guy's really freaking weird. And so then Sully's like, I'm gonna go take a shower and wash all this off. And then Marin's like, okay. And then she scurries out of the house and gets on the bus. And then we see her driving away on the bus, and Sully, he normally has his hair in a braid and he looks like put together. He looks like a cartoon fisherman, but he looks put together and normally. And then we see him standing on the curb outside the house looking at the bus, and his hair's down and wet, like he rushed out of the shower, or like had his hair let down kind of thing, like literally around her. And he just looks like so heartbroken to see her leaving. And we move on to the next date. Then actually I don't remember what the next date she goes is. Sully introduced, waiting at the bus stop. Sully says he knows she's an eater. Eating scene sounds gross. Shot from the character's perspective. Yuck. Feels like you just walked in on someone eating an old lady. These are my notes. Okay. I know. She doesn't go to an in-between date. Next, she goes to Indiana. And this is where we meet our poster child, Timmy. His name is not Timmy though. His name is Lee. So she's in this convenience store and she's stealing tampons and stuff because she's kind of run out of money from her dad, or she's really trying to keep as much as she can. Her dad couldn't have given her that much, and she spent most of it on the bus ride there, if not all of it. So she's stealing tampons and stuff. Then there's this guy in this hat and this Hawaiian shirt thing, and he's messing with this mom in the store. Not messing with in a suggestive way. Messing with hey old lady, get out of the way. And then she's like, leave her alone. Stop talking to her like that. And then we see Lee is standing next to her looking at other stuff. And he's they make eye contact with each other, and they sense something. They're And Lee kind of chimes in, and he's like, yeah, leave her alone. And he gives her a look, and he's like, can I take him, kind of thing. And then then he kind of goes up to him, and he's messes with him back until he leaves the store, and he's like, is this what you do? Is this your hobby? You just mess with people at the store? He's like, get a hobby, man. And then they walk out of the store. And, they're in a tussle kind of thing. Not a physical tussle, but the guy's kind of chasing after him. And then Marin's like, that guy's something. I know something about, And so then she waits until later. It's it was sunny when that happened, and then the sun's down, and she's waiting outside the store. We see Lee come out of this abandoned building with his shirt off, and he's got some blood on him. So it's we know, oh yes, this guy's an eater as well, kind of thing. And that's why they shared that look, and that's why they recognized something within each other. And then he's washing off with a water bottle, and he's all hunched and wow, kind of don't look at me, I'm a monster. But not really, don't look at me, but acting he's very feral kind of thing. And Marin's like, hey, what's up? And he's like, there's more if you want it. It feels so weird to say this because it's humans, but it's a movie, and it's a metaphor for stuff. But I mean, it's super, super weird. But he's yeah, okay, go ahead. He's still trying to be kind of polite, but he's really off put. He's I don't want to talk to you. And Marin's but we shared that, look, and I think you're an eater, and you're about my age, and I think you could teach me about it. Like, you're like young, and I'm young, and like I have a lot of questions, and you seem friendly, so answer my questions for me. And he's like, well, I'm not gonna be like rude to you, but like leave me alone. I'm a loner. And then she's like, no, I'm gonna follow you around if that's okay. And he's like, fine, follow me around if you want. And then they hop into this truck. It's the guy's truck that Lee just ate. And he's wearing the guy's hat. And Marin's like, you're just gonna steal his truck? And he's like, what is he gonna do with it? I already checked, like, his wallet says he doesn't have a family or anything, so, like, he doesn't have any family pictures or anything, and so I figure, like, this is just some nobody anyway, who's gonna know if this truck's gone or if somebody's at his house. Like, and she's like, at his house? And she's like, well, you know, kind of like going along with it, but like, she's like, this is weird. Like, you can't just, like, steal his stuff, but at the same time, like, where am I gonna go anyway? so then, yeah, Lee's like, okay, well, there's like no money in his wallet, but it does have his license, it has his home address, so let's go check out his house. And then they're like, then they go over to his house, and they're like, this place is kind of a dump. It's kind of a dump, but it works for now. And Lee's going through the guy's record collection, and he's like, boy, this guy's got great taste in music, actually, and it's really cool, and I kind of like being at this house, actually, even though it's kind of a dump, and I just made fun of it. And then he, like, puts on a Kiss record, and then he's like, this is the fancy Kiss record where, like, they took off their makeup, and this is the best album, and I love it. And he's, like, jumping around and dancing to it, and, like, trying to, like, show off for Marin a little bit, but also, like, kind of like not realizing the situation he's in. Like, he just kind of like stole this guy's house, and he's like just jamming to his music, and he's like, and then he sees himself in the mirror, and he still has like a little bit of blood on him, and he's like I'm gonna go take a shower. Because he kind of like realizes, like, oh shoot, this situation's kind of whack, huh? And then he like walks out of the room, like he gets like really serious, and then just walks out of the room. And Marin's like looking around at the room too, kind of thing, like appreciating the guy for his life. Even if they don't think that he's like that special of a guy, he's still a man who lived and had a house and had possessions, and Marin's going around appreciating things almost. And then we see her like walk into the bathroom after Lee had left, and like there's some like blood in the tub, and it's like kind of just a shot showing her where she's at. Like, she kind of just followed this guy she doesn't know, and like is kind of like, she doesn't really know what to do. She's like, this is the closest thing I have to a companion, but this is really messed up, and I don't agree with stealing people's stuff, but at the same time I kind of see why he did. And it's like, but there's blood in the tub. Is my life gonna be full of blood from now on? Is this the kind of people I'm like? Did I find the people like me? What does that say about me? Should I be here? Is this, you know, because she doesn't really know, like, she's on her own, and she's like, this is the closest thing I have to a guide and companion. Like, I don't know what else to do, and like, he at least can like tell me a bit about it, but like, this is weird, and I don't like how he stole this person's house, and like, and it's all kind of said that, and just like showing her like walk around this house, and like from her perspective, just like kind of what she looks at. Like, she looks at like the posters and the vinyls and the bathroom, and it kind of like follows her eyes around, and things kind of calm down a little, and Lee and her start talking about stuff. He's still got like a front right now. He's like, I have to go home to Kentucky because I promised my sister I would give her driving lessons. You can come if you want. And she's like, sure, whatever. And then they go to Kentucky, And Leah's like, okay, this is my aunt's house. You have to keep all the lights off. They're kind of just squatting in a new house kind of thing. And he's like, keep all the lights off because I don't want my family knowing that I'm in town because I want to be able to leave as soon as possible. And I don't want them to like yell at me or anything. So just, my aunt's out of town. We're just going to stay here for now. Don't, like, shh. Then this girl walks in and she's like yelling at him. And she's like, hey, you're in town. You didn't say anything. And blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, I said I'd be in for your driving lessons. And he's got like this southern accent on. And then she's like, just for my driver's lessons, you need to stay now that you're here. Why don't you just stay here? Like, nobody's mad at you anymore. And he's like, no, I gotta keep going. I don't want to be here anymore. And I promised I'll be here for your driving lessons. And then I'm gonna leave again. And then she's like, what the heck? And then she like notices Marin and she's like, hello? And she's like, well, we'll talk about this later. And then the girl leaves. He's like, that's my little sister. Do you want to go check out some other stuff in town? He's like, my family has a butcher shop and we can go hang out there. He's a very romantic guy. So they go to the butcher shop to hang out. And he's like, so my family owns this butcher shop and like a cafe that's connected to it. And we can probably get some money there. We have like a miscellaneous jar, like a tip jar thing. And so then like Marin keeps watch and he goes and takes the tip jar so that they have money. And then they're in like the cattle barn. And when I saw that I was like, stinky. I don't want to hang out in a cattle barn. Anyway. So they're hanging out in the cattle barn and Marin's telling him about how like, oh, I'm on this quest to find my mom. She's in Minnesota, but I don't know much about her. She left when I was really little. And, yeah, this is my next step anyway. And he's like, well, I have my truck. Like, we can drive there if you want. Like, I'll come with you. And then she's like, really? And he's like, yeah. And then, so you can see that they're like a cute little duo. Plus, like the money thing and like how they just kind of tagged along to the different places and stuff. But he's like, yeah, just like it's a long drive, but we can do it. And then she's like, aw. And then they kiss in the cow barn, and it's really cute. And then we get like a little bit of time where they're like cute and dating. They're eating donuts by the lake. For some reason, it's not really a lake food, but they're eating donuts by the lake, being cute and stuff. Then Lee's like, how do you feel about sleeping outside? And then Marin's like, I'm chill with it. So then they go out into like a field and like set up the back of his pickup for sleeping. But they're like chatting and she's like, do you remember the first time they ate somebody? And he was like, it was amazing. Like I felt alive. And she's like, she's like, anything else? And he's like, no, that's it. I don't know, nothing else. And she's like, no. And then he's like, I'm just telling the truth, sweetie. And he starts talking in like a southern accent. Like you can tell that he's like putting on a little front, like, oh, don't call me out on that. I've been like trying to talk like a tough guy. Like I'm taking control of the situation, and you're not allowed to ask me about that. But like at the same time being like patronizing. Guys like that, the worst ones. Anyway, so he's acting like that, like he's like a tough guy, and like, well, I told you the truth. And then she's like, no, you didn't. Like she's not gonna take that. Like she's not gonna take that condescension, and she's gonna call him on it. And then she like invites him to listen to the dad's tape with her because she's like, it's kind of hard for me to listen to on my own, and you seem nice enough, so now that we're like a little couple, I trust you, and it might be good to listen to this together because it's a lot to learn that I've been like this for a while. So then that happens for a little bit, and then these two guys pull up in a car. and they're like, hey, you guys were at the lake, right? We could smell you from across the lake. And they're like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, we're eaters too, man. We're friendly. You want to have a beer with us? And they're like, And then they like, Lee gives them fake names. I forget what he calls Marin, but he calls himself Leon. The guy, one of the guys is the dad, and Call Me By Your Name, but he's like, he looks so different, and I'm like, is that guy? And it is. So if you're curious and you didn't know, that's the same actor. And so he's telling him about how he met his friend that he brought, and he's like, so he used to be a cop, and he almost arrested me because he saw me eating somebody, and then, but instead of, and I'm like, and I told him, like, either arrest me or leave me alone. And then he was like, but he didn't arrest me, he just came over because he was curious. So I've been teaching about eating, and he's been getting into it. He's like, yeah, I've eaten like 3 people so far, but I haven't eaten anybody bones and all yet. And then Marin's like, that's impossible, you can't eat somebody bones and all. And then they're like, yeah, you can. And he's like, you've never done that? Like, that's like you haven't eaten somebody if you haven't eaten bones and all. Then they're like, oh yeah, but I don't even need to do this, but I'm like training up to it kind of thing. And she's like, wait, you're doing this on purpose? Why would you ever do this on purpose? Like, this doesn't make any sense. You're not an eater. The actual eater was like, yeah, I'm training him how to sniff people out. He's improving. He's not quite there yet, but he's improving. So it's kind of fun to teach him. And Marin is like appalled, and she's like, you are eating people for fun? Like, why? And he's like, well, why not? Like, I don't see the problem with it. And the other guy's like, yeah, what's the problem with it? He wants to be one of us. What's the big deal? And she's like, because it's wrong, and I don't even want to do this. Like, why would you choose to do it? Like, you're insane. And then she like she gets mad and runs back to the truck. And then the guys are like talking to Lee, and they're like, you know, you don't even know who you are, do you, guy? And then he's like, and the scene kind of ends. It's kind of like, you're putting up a front there, and you think like she thinks she has a lot to figure out. You're the one that has a lot to figure out, buddy. And he's like, and then the scene cuts, and they're back in the truck, and like the 2 guys had like gone to bed. They like didn't leave, they just stayed in there, or like, I don't know if they went to bed, but they were just talking amongst themselves or something in their own truck. And then Marin's like, we gotta get out of here. They like put the car in neutral and kind of like leave like real slowly, trying to sneak away, like how she did with Sully kind of thing. And then suddenly one of the guys notices and like starts chasing him, and it's got like this like crazy music, like chase scene music, but of course he's like on foot, so what's he gonna do? But it's like, hey, don't leave, you know. So it's part 2 of them leaving another eater, that, and like secretly like being like, that guy's suspicious, let's leave. So yeah, and then they're like driving on the road, and they're like laughing and having a nice time, and it's very aesthetic and cute. And then they go to the carnival, and then there's like this kind of awkward scene. I was thinking about it, like the director is Italian, and it felt like a very like European style of filmmaking in this carnival scene, because there's like a montage of them hanging out at the fair and like kissing on the Ferris wheel, and then there's a voice-over of Marin saying, Lee, I'm hungry. And it feels very awkward, because typically in American films it's like narrating, not the person who's talking. Like, it's showing Marin and Lee not talking, and it's a voiceover of Marin saying, Lee, I'm hungry. So it's like, that conversation did not happen then, but it's trying to show like they're a couple now, and she sees him as somebody that can provide for her, and like she trusts him, and she can trust him to say like, I'm having cannibal urges, Lee, and you know, like a vulnerability, and then it's like juxtaposed over them being a cute couple. And so like I understand what it's getting at, but like hearing a voiceover over her not talking reminds me of like an anime opening, not an opening like a music opening, but like the beginning of an anime of like, I'm main character and I'm doing this and I'm gonna be the greatest one day. Like it felt like that. Because I was like trying to think about like why that felt so awkward, and I think it's because of that, where it's like if it was like in a different language or like in a different context, I wouldn't think about it at all, you know? So that was interesting, because both times I saw it I was like, what was that? like not like in a way that like offset the whole, you know, that I was like, whoa, but like in a way I'm like, that was a little awkward. Like the rest of the movie is so immersive and so good at ambiance, and then that kind of like jumped me out of it for a second. I was like, why? You know, so that's my explanation as to why I might have felt that way. And then anyway, so she says, Lee, I'm hungry. And then Lee's like, okay. And he goes up to one of the carnival workers and he starts flirting with him. And he's like, you got anything fun to do after this? And then the carnival guy's like, you can meet me at my car after I get off at 11. And he's like, okay. We cut to after at 11. And, you know, they're like kissing and stuff. And Marin's there and she's like, what's happening? They're like hooking up in the field. And then Lee stabs him in the back, literally. And then Lee's like, okay, come on over, it's time to eat. And then, so they do, and then they're gonna return his car back to his house from like the license address. And then once they get to the house, they're looking in the windows, like from a distance, and you can see like a silhouette in the window, and it's this woman with a baby. And then Marin's like, a woman with a baby can't have a family, what the heck? You can't just eat people with families? And he's like, well, he didn't mention anything about a family, he had no family pictures, or not necessarily, I think they might have found one in the car, like one in the car, and then that's how they were like, and then they saw the woman in the house, you know, that confirmed that was his family. And then he's like, but I like checked and like he didn't say anything about it. So Lee's getting really defensive and Marin's like, this is awful, we can't just do this, like I feel horrible being this cannibal. And then he's like, but we have to, because what are we gonna do? And like, I don't really know, because they do eat normal food. Like, so it's not just, they don't like literally, they have to eat people, but not like for food. It's more like they get weird if they don't, which arguably they're weird that they do, right? But like they say like they get like really antsy, and like one of Sully's explanations and stuff was like, well, you need to eat every so often so that way like you're not desperate, and then you might become impulsive and then you might hurt somebody. So it's better to like eat when you first realize you're hungry, so that way you can make better choices about it. But like they don't really say like it's like necessary to live. So after the carnival, things are a little bit tense between Lee and Marin, because like Marin's like, this is wrong, we shouldn't eat people with families. Family is very touchy for her because her family left her and she doesn't know her mom. And she's like, this is important. I don't have any friends, I don't have any family. We gotta respect that about people. And Lee's like, well, what else are we gonna do? Because he does have a family, and it's kind of touchy for him too, but he's not gonna get into it right now. And yeah, so they kind of butt heads on that, because he's like, Lee gets defensive, and he's like, but I don't like. It's kind of like, I'm kind of trapped in this, and don't make me feel bad for me living my life. But also like, kind of like, yeah, I know that it's bad. But also like, I like being bad, and also, am I bad for being bad? Like, am I one of those creepy eaters, or am I a cool eater? And he's like, well, I'm my own eater, so that's okay. And like all of those things are happening at once, kind of like whenever he talks, and it's always like flipping back and forth, and he kind of goes between accents depending on what kind of facade he's trying to put on. Like if he's trying to be like strong and in charge, he talks in a southern accent, because like he's from Kentucky, and he's like, yes, I'm in charge and I know what's right and you don't know what's right and I'm making this decision. And that's his southern accent. And then he has like normal Midwest accent, then that's when he kind of lets his walls down, or like he tries to like kind of tell the truth and then slips back and forth. Because he does run away a lot, so he's like has a lot of different influences, but when he's back home, he talks like he's back home, and it's kind of cute. But definitely his southern facade is the most annoying because it's his fakest form. So yeah. So then, eventually they get to Minnesota, and they look up the mom's name, but they don't find like the mom, but they find another woman with the same last name like in the phone book, and they go and visit her, and it turns out to be Marin's grandmother. And Marin's in there alone, and she's like asking like, oh, where's my mom? And then the grandma's like, she's not with us anymore. And then she's like, oh, how'd she die? And she's like, well, I don't really want to get into it. And here's a picture of her and stuff, and she was nice, and she had her own problems and whatever, but you know. And she's like, well, I want to know more because she's my mom. And then the grandma's kind of like, and then she's like, was she weird? Like, did she like do anything strange? And then the grandma's like, you're coming in here accusing me of things? Get out of my house. And she's like, what the heck? Like, I deserve to know. Like, I'm her daughter. And then she's like, okay, well, actually, she's not dead. She's in a mental hospital, like a city away or something. And she's like, thanks. Like, and then she's like, and stay out. She like kicks her out of her house. She's like, don't ever come back here talking to me about that stuff again. You know, she's like, we did the best we could, kind of thing. And like, she's not even, you know, like very like ashamed of her, ashamed of Marin's mom, and doesn't want to talk about it at all. And like, you can tell that it's like by proxy, like I don't want to be associated with that anymore. So she came from a very loving, supportive family, clearly. That's sarcasm, of course. So then Marin like hops back in the car, and she's like, I know where she is. And then Lee's like, you want to talk about it? And she's like, no, let's just go. And then they drive up to the mental hospital, and Marin goes in alone again. And Lee's like, do you want me to come in? And then she's like, no, I can do it. She goes up to the nurse, and she's like, yeah, I'm here to see her. And the nurse is like, she hasn't had visitors in forever, so she'll be delighted to see you. And then she's like, and also I have a letter for you that she wrote a long time ago. She doesn't really talk or say anything anymore, but you can go see her. So she sees her mom, and she's all huddled up in the corner, and her arms are gone, like stumps from there up. And she's like got her head shaved, and she looks really like scared and small. Like a caged animal, I guess, is the kind of deal. And the nurse comes back with the letter, and then the letter is being read as a voiceover as they're like seeing the mom from Marin's perspective, like kind of like angled down, because the mom's sitting in a chair. And she's like looking around the room being like, ooh, this is a sterile, sad place. And so the letter says, if you're reading this letter, then it means that your dad broke his promise and told you about me. I'm really sorry that you're a cannibal, pretty much. It doesn't really say much explanation. It's just kind of like, I tried to keep this a secret from you, and I'm sorry that's not a secret anymore. I don't really want you to be here. And she's like, and the best I can do is solve the problem that I created. And then as like they're saying that, then the mom like lunges at Marin, like going to eat her. So then Marin's like processing this. She's like, okay, one, my mom's an eater, so it must be genetic. Two, my mom tried to eat me. What? And she's like, I'm trying to get out of the room. And she's like, all of this is like, you know, compiling as this is happening. Like, the mom, you know, didn't, you know, trust the dad, and like said like slander against the dad in a letter saying like, your dad didn't keep his promise to not tell you. But it's like, he didn't tell her. He was just like, figure it out. He's like, you can have your birth certificate, I'm backing away. You know, like the dad did not break the secret. So like to have that slander from your mom after she left you and your dad, raised you and like tried to protect you your whole life, like that's such a bad opening to your estranged parent. And then also finding out that the mom is the eater, and then finding out that she left to protect Marin from herself, and also because she couldn't face the shame of having an eater as a child almost. And then also like being like, well, now that you're here, you're not going to be here anymore, goodbye. And then the fact that like she was like the first time that she met her daughter, she was planning on just getting rid of her. Like, what a great way to meet a parent. And so then she's running out of the hospital, and she's like livid, and she's like, I can't believe she left me. Like, that's so irresponsible. She left me with nobody, not knowing who I am, not giving me any guidance. Like, so selfish of her. And then also, like, look at what has become of her. Like, she ate her own arms, and she's like this is what I don't know if she literally ate her own arms, but that's what Marin's thinking because she's so out of sorts and like just trying to eat her. And she's like, I can't believe she would do this to me. Like, why did she leave me all alone with no guidance? And like, she literally gave me this ailment and then left me just to fend for myself. And she's like, that's so unfair. What an awful lady, And then Lee's like, well, there's worse parents, right? Like, it's not so bad, at least. Like, maybe it's better that she left, And she's like, what do you even know? Like you didn't even see her in there. She's like, is that what I'm becoming? Like, what the heck? And then it's also like implied, like, is that my fate kind of thing of like, is that what this is? Like, and then she's like rethinking everything about like, I don't think I want to be down for this anymore. I don't think I want to have a cute little love story where we go around the country and eat people morally. I don't want to do that anymore. Like she's like, this is enough. Like, I don't want that to be my future. I would never do that to somebody, kind of thing. And then it's like real tense, and then they like drive to like go get gas. They're like in a fight kind of thing, and like Lee goes to sleep in the car, and Marin's like, do you want anything? Because I'm stopping for gas. And then he's like, no, I'm good. And then Marin just really quietly, like, takes all the money that they had together out of her pocket and just, like, gives it to him. And then, leaves. And, like, he's asleep in the truck. When Lee wakes up, he's, like, looking for her. He's like, what the heck? Like, where'd you go? And then you see she, like, had dropped, like, the picture that she had of her mom. And these pictures, one, her whole journey was to see her mom, and two, like throughout the movie, Marin has like thought that family pictures were so important, and she just has it like left on the ground. Like, no, like this is, I don't even know what to do anymore. But all I know is that I don't want to be like this anymore, and that like this, I don't know what to do. So she's like walking down the road alone, and Lee, Lee's looking for her, and you can't find her anywhere, and so then it's them alone, and now we just follow Marin. So Marin's walking down the road, and she comes across this farm stand, and this van pulls up, and a familiar face steps out of the van on this side of the road. You want to guess who it is? Well, you don't have to guess, I'm going to tell you. It's Sully from before, the old man with the fisherman's vest. And then he's like, hey, I saw that you had a fight with your boyfriend. Do you want to come hang out with me again? She's like, he's not my boyfriend. He's like, well, he doesn't know that. It doesn't look like he knows that. He's like, well, now that you don't have a boyfriend anymore, we can hang out again. And then Marin's like, in order to be friends, both people have to like each other. I don't really like you. Please leave me alone. Like, essentially being like, I was hanging out with him and not you because I liked him and not you. And it's really weird that you followed me here. And it's really weird that you've been following me since, and that you decided to talk to me right after I got alone. Like, that's really weird. And she's like, that's strange of you to do. Please don't do that. And then Sully's like, you're a jerk and I hate you. And you're the worst person ever. and he's like yelling, like swearing, insulting her, and then he just gets in his car and leaves. Marin is quite the spitfire. She has no problem telling people what's up. Like, she'll call Lee on his like facades, and she'll call those middle-aged guys in convenience stores on their behavior, and she'll tell Sully right to his face that he's a creepy old guy and he shouldn't stalk people. And I like that about her. Sometimes it does get her in trouble, but I like that she's still confident with it. You know, like, it could have gone worse for her if she wasn't so confident. So yeah, she's like, ooh, that's bad. And then we have a time skip. Marin is driving a car somehow, even though that's not explained. We don't know how she got the car, or how she got money to buy a car, or what she's been up to or anything, but it's months in the future, and she's driven to Lee's hometown that she somehow remembered where it was. It was the 80s, and I don't know how that worked. Maybe she just remembered, even though it seemed like a really small town. I don't know how you just know how to get there. But anyway, so she's in Lee's hometown, and she stops at this ice cream place, and she sees Lee's sister Kayla there, and she's like, hey, is Lee around? Kayla's like, yeah, actually, he's not like in town, but he's been hanging out by the lake. I guess you guys both think alike to meet up here. Like, I think he was waiting for you. And Marin says, I don't think so. Like, she's very much in denial that somebody would be waiting for her or looking out for her or has like any kind of inkling towards her, because, you know, her whole life she's been abandoned by everybody, and she's always been moved around, and she has no stable friends or anybody to trust. So like, she's very much in denial that like that they were a couple, and that he cares about her and would wait for her, because, like, you know, they don't have cell phones or anything, and they're always moving, they're always on the road, so there's no way that they could just like call each other up or something. So yeah, they find each other back in the hometown, and she goes to the lake, and then it's just like this wide shot of her like walking up to him and them hugging for like a long time, and it's really sweet. And then they go swimming, and then they're like, hey, you want to just go across the country until our engine gives out? And they're like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's just head west and start a little life together, and just like be on the road again, because that was like our happiest time, and let's like actually do this. And then we have a very cute montage of them driving out west and being an actual couple that they like decided to be. And this is a good time to mention, throughout the movie, Marin wears a lot of floral dresses, and Lee is always wearing like jeans and a blouse, and like in a behind the scenes thing, and also like kind of from that first guy when they met, and also like how Lee kind of takes people's stuff, like he kind of wears stuff based on the people that he eats. In the same way that Marin, like, she remembers the people that she eats with the family photos and things like that, and Sully remembers people with his hairball. Lee remembers people, or like pays remembrance kind of thing, by taking on some of their clothes. That was shown when they first met, also like how he took the guy's hat. Like, he takes like their cars and their houses and whatever, like temporarily, but he like wears their clothes, and like that like stays with him kind of thing. But also like, it also kind of shows that he doesn't know who he is, and he's trying to still figure that out, but also that he's kind of sentimental like Marin is, because Marin keeps track of like their past, like the people that she eats past, and Lee takes on a bit of like their persona, but also a little bit of like trying on clothes of personalities, and like, is this my new style? Like, but also like, he's so transient, like he can just wear anybody's clothes. It's like all of those things. He does actually keep them with him, so it is like a remembrance thing. That really shows his personality of feeling conflicted in it, because he's like, I know that these are people, and I know that this is kind of strange and wrong, and I am respecting them, and like, I don't know what else to do, but also like, what else can I do, and is this enough, and all of those things. So he's like trying to be respectful by kind of being disrespectful. Like, it's kind of weird to take their clothes and their stuff, but I think he kind of views it as like one, like, who else is going to use it? I might as well. But also, like, two, of like kind of appreciating it, and as like a token of, you live on through me a little bit. And it's like all of those things, and like poorly doing it, and the clothes don't fit him. Like, they're either too small or too big, and they're definitely not like his clothes. Now that Marin and him are hanging out more, and they decided like to be a couple for sure, then he starts wearing more florals, and Marin starts wearing jean dresses, like his jeans, so they're tied together now, and they're wearing clothes like each other. So it's like kind of sweet, like the costuming both shows like their personalities, and like Marin is always wearing like her dad's jacket, so she's always thinking about like her family and where she came from and whatever, and then like then she starts wearing like the jean dresses, and I'm pretty sure like at that point she like takes off the jacket. I'm pretty sure, but I don't remember positively, but I'm pretty sure when she's wearing the jean dress, she's not wearing the jacket. So like she's like not her new life. But if she is, it's still showing that she values family. Yeah, so their costumes are coinciding, and so it's like Lee is like actually choosing clothes like to reflect Marin because he cares about her, and vice versa. And it's like really sweet, and you can see that they're like finally like they're trusting each other, and they're bonding. And then we have this scene where they're in the plains, and they're like, well, we went really far and our van's kind of broken down, and we can just keep going until it really can't go anymore. Like they said that the engine's kind of busted, so we can, like, let's just keep driving and then settle down wherever we end up. We'll like head back home and then see what happens. And then they're like, yeah, that's a good plan. And then Marin's like, you've been really quiet about your dad. Like, you clam up every time your dad's mentioned, your family's mentioned, and you said like weird stuff about my parents. Like, what's that all about? Like, you can tell me. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you. Like, it's been a while, and I think I can tell you now. And he's like, so. He's like, so Marin, you know, of course, how eaters are genetic. Well, my dad was the eater of my family, and he was extremely abusive to us, so we would get in fights a lot, and I would have to protect Kayla. That was like my job, and I always had to protect my family, and I always had to, like, my dad was like a bad role model, so I was in charge of like keeping everybody safe. And then I found out I was an eater, just like him, and one day it was getting too violent, so then I told Kayla to go get the police, and she ran out of the house to go get the police, and I took my dad and took him away to a barn and tied him up, and I looked at him, and he was like, he knew what was going to happen, and I could see in his face that he was scared, and then I ate him, and it was very cathartic, and I feel really bad about that, and I feel like I'm a monster for it. Like, I'm like him, like I am from him, and I do the same things as him, and I don't. So it's showing like his whole journey is culminated with this of opening up and saying like what he really feels about how he's like, I don't want to be like my dad, so I don't want to stay home. Like, this is all implied. Like, I don't want to be there, home. I don't want my family to know who I really am. I don't want my family to think I'm like him. I don't, like, because Kayla kept saying, like, you're not in trouble anymore. Like, everything's fine. Like, you're not in trouble with the law or anything. Why don't you just stay home? And it's like, he doesn't want to stay home because he doesn't want people finding out about like who he is and what he did literally, and he doesn't want to be viewed as a monster, and he doesn't want to be viewed like his dad, but also like he doesn't know who he is because he doesn't have a role model, and his basis for who he is an abusive monster. And he's like, well, that's like, he knows that's not who he is, but part of him believes that, so like that's why he gets so defensive, and that's why he gets so like clammed up about it, and that's why he's like so alone, and so it's so hard to bond with people and not have a front because he doesn't even know, he thinks that who he is the problem. And then Marin encourages him, and she's like, you were just protecting your family, like you are not like him, like you used your situation to help people, like you are not a monster like him, you were not abusive like him, like you are not doomed to that. It's a very beautiful scene. They embrace, of course. It's a very, very moving scene, and there's part where Lee is like trying to say this, but you can tell that like he said like, I've never told anybody this, because he's always on the move. He's never trust anybody to stay, and he doesn't even like want to be himself, like even when he first met Marin and he saw himself in the mirror, who he actually was, he was so ashamed that he like had to leave, like it like physically shut him down seeing himself. And so it's like he's never told anybody this, and he has this beautiful moment where he's telling her this story and like telling her all of this stuff that he's never told anybody and all the shame that he's been holding. And he like looks over to her and he's like crying and he smiles. Oh, because he's like still trying to be like, it's okay though. Oh boy. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, it's such a cryy scene. I did all this all the time on my makeup, so I'm gonna try not to cry though. So after this scene, it solidifies that they are in fact in love, and they're true supportive partners who truly care about each other and see each other and get each other. It cuts to the future where they're in Michigan, and they have an apartment together, and Marin has a job. Their apartment's really lived in, contrasted with Marin's original homes that were like really sparse and unkept because she had to shift so many homes. Like their house is like their house, that you know that they're staying together, and it's so cute, and it's all seen like so just like, here's the table and here's the thing and here's them at work, and it's so like cute. I thought it was getting way too hot, so I took it off. And plus now we're coming to the end of the movie, and unfortunately this last part is extremely brutal. So we've had this cute scene of them having their own life and being happy, and then one day Marin comes home from work and sees that like the door's like open, and there's like a bag on the ground, and it's a recognizable bag, so it's Sully's bag. And so then Sully like comes up behind her and is like, you are awful, and I've been following you again, of course, because I'm here, and I cannot stop thinking about how terrible you are, and I want this to end, and for this to end for me, you need to die. And she's like, but Sully, you said that you don't kill people, like you don't like killing people. And he's like, I lied. And so she's like, uh-oh. And she glances back at the bag, and she sees this blonde hair with a scrunchie on it and realizes that it's Kayla's hair. So this Sully is off the rails right now. He's going batty, and he's a major threat. He broke in, he killed Kayla, and he's planning on killing Marin. And so then she's like trying to calm him down and trying to get him out of it, and she's like, you said you're a good person, like, come on, you don't have to do this. And then like very quietly Lee's like sneaking in, luckily. And then they fight him off and like get him to the bathtub, and then they kill him in the bathtub because it's their house. They like to be a little neat, but it's very like intense, and like they're like wrestling with him and like, you know, but midway through the fight Sully has stabbed Lee a couple times in the chest, and so then Lee's dying on the floor, and Marin's like, well, we have to go to the hospital, we have to call the ambulance, you know. And then he's like, we can't call an ambulance, look at this place, you know, like, it's clearly something horrible happened here, like, I don't want to call the ambulance. Which, as a side note, they could call the ambulance because they had an intruder. Like, they didn't just like murder somebody, they had an intruder. But it was there was blood everywhere, so it like looked probably bad. Like, I don't know if the police would believe them. Anyway, but so then yeah, Lee's like, no, we can't do that. And then Marin's like, come on, we'll just take you to the hallway and we can call the ambulance, you know. And then he's like, no, I'm dying. This is it for me. And Marin's like, come on, no. And then he's like, nope, it's time, and I want you to eat me. And she's like, what? Like, you can't say that to me. And then he's like, no, I want you to. And then she does. And he's like, bones and all kind of thing. And like implying, you know, like like that it's over. Like, it's very, very over for them also. Like, but also like her fully embracing that she's an eater even without him, but also it's like giving of all of himself to her. And also like throughout the movie they kind of say like there's like a joy in it of eating somebody, of like being free and being yourself. So it's like all of those things, and it's so sad because he does die. And then they play a very sad song, and they show the apartment, and they show the bedside table with their books, and they show the kitchen with the dishes, and they show like just the life they had built together and how it's like how far they've come, but also now it's done, and it's very, very sad. And then the final shot is them like in the field where Lee had told her about his dad, and it's like a zoomed out shot of them just like together, and then it ends. I'm very surprised how I remembered all that. I watched that movie a year ago. I watched it twice, and I did say I have a good memory, and I guess I do, because I only had to check my notes like twice, and I was like remembering it correctly. I guess I liked it. The only thing was that like after I watched it the first time, it was so much to process and so visceral, and like because like I've said, it's from their perspective, so it's like you are experiencing this with them. Like you're experiencing a home intruder with them. You're experiencing your boyfriend dying with them. You're experiencing every single thing, the highs and the lows. It's so much, and it's like it couldn't have been that immersive without all of the care put into it, and it's so cool. But the content makes it so hard to watch, you know? And, like, yeah, when I got back, like, when I left the theater, I was like, oh boy. And then I just had to, like, cry after, because I'm like, that was a lot. And then I watched it again. Like, I thought I wouldn't, because after the first time I watched it, I was like, oh boy, what is this? Like, oh boy, like that was a lot. Like, and then I couldn't stop talking about it for like 2 weeks, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go see it again. And then I did, and I'm glad I did. I really like it. I would watch it definitely again. I think that the acting performances are beautiful. I think that the movie is beautiful. And like I had said, like way earlier, the first time I watched it, I covered my eyes a lot throughout like the eating scenes because they're really gross and there's blood everywhere and stuff, and they make really gross noises, so I thought like you'd see a lot. And so I'd cover my eyes every time it would happen. But then the second time I watched it, I didn't cover my eyes because I was like, okay, well, at least I know the progression of things. But like at least I know, so I'm like prepared. Yeah, so I didn't close my eyes, and it just cut wherever I closed my eyes anyway. So like it is really bloody, but it doesn't show it like excessively like some gory movies do. It's more just like shows you the extent of the situation and then stops most of the time. And then they have like gross eating noises. It's a little like it does make you feel like you're there because you would hear that. But that is gross, but like yeah. Do you feel like you were there? I would still suggest to go see it. I think it's such a good movie. Oh boy. This was a long time coming because, as you can see, this video is forever long and it's so heavy, and it's like I wanted it to be good and include the things I wanted to say. Oh, I had a joke. This went way better than I thought it would. Just keeping going and being focused. And I had this joke. I don't know if I'll include it, but like in the Tim Burton Willy Wonka, you know, Willy Wonka says, like, everything in this room is eatable, even I'm eatable. But that is called cannibalism, dear children, which is frowned upon in most societies. And it's so funny, because that's exactly what this movie's about, and then Timothee Chalamet is playing Willy Wonka, so it's just like, boop, like, perfect. I guess it's not really a joke, but that was just a fun thing I noticed. So yeah, did you have fun? I did. I feel a little weird now, saying all those things. I think the cannibalism of it sounds and was really a lot, but at the same time, it's also like intense as a, like, with purpose instead of intense, like, gross out or like intense for shock. And it's not really done excessively. Yeah, so like I think it's done in a way that is like they know it's gross and they are also conflicted about it, and they're like in the movie, like the characters are like, ooh, like reacting the same way a real person would, but also being like, well, like this is my life, so do I have to? And also like I kind of have to, and also kind of like this is what I like doing, but also I know it's bad, but is it bad if I think about doing it morally and stuff like that? And so it's like has all of those layers to it, and so it's not just like there to be obnoxious, it's there for the characters to learn through it. So I think in that way, like it is quite the strange content, but I think it's definitely on purpose and done well for its purpose. So yeah, as you can see, I can talk about stuff that's not stupid. I'm sore from standing this long, but that was really fun. I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad if you stayed this long, thank you. I'm so happy.